Everybody, I'm Sam from Sam Can't or Can. This right here is Eli. Anybody who's been over on the Sunrise Gecko channel will know who Eli is, as he is a frequent flyer there. He is my Chihuahua, my wonderful loving doggo, who is a pain in the ass and barks a lot. So, today we're going to talk about fairy houses. Fairy houses are something that I've been into for a while now, and for a while I mean like my whole life. One of my great aunts, I just call her Aunt Janice, but she's my great aunt. She's huge and was one of the first people who showed me fairy houses back when I still lived out in Colorado. And I've always had a fascination with fairy houses and sorry for using the word "and" a lot. I've always had a fascination with fairy houses and everything that surrounds them. I think one of the things that we lose as we get older is we lose the ability to believe in things that don't seem possible. Like when you're a kid, you're just sure that Bugs Bunny is real or one of the other cartoon characters that you watch is real. When you're a kid, you're sure that fairies exist, and you just have this surety in the impossibility, and it leads to a lot of creative things that you can imagine and you can explore and you journey through. And, do mermaids exist? Yes, mermaids are real. And these are things that you stand by, these convictions when you're younger. You believe in Santa Claus, you believe in the Tooth Fairy, you believe in fairies and ghosts and goblins and the fantastical. And you believe in impossibilities. Nothing is impossible when you're a kid. And then you get older, and then you start to age, and then Santa Claus, everybody figures out first that Santa Claus or the Tooth Fairy, those are the two big ones. You figure out that they're not real. You figure out that they're your parents trying to propagate a myth. You figure out that the Easter Bunny isn't this magical thing, it's just your parents and grandparents trying to make your childhood happy and building on a shared belief system that children have had for years. For those people who've gotten really skeptical, they've gone back and found the original tales of St. Nicholas and the Easter Bunny and the Tooth Fairy, and they've gone back into the older, darker fairy tales. Everybody starts believing in Disney and stuff when they're younger, and when they get older, you have your hardcore Disney goers who are just like Disney everything. And then you have the people who start bringing you the real fairy tales behind Cinderella and Rapunzel. And a lot of those fairy tales were dark because back in those days, mistakes cost lives. And children died by the hundreds as children. And as we've gotten into a more technological and more advanced society that we're in now versus what we were in back in the Middle Ages, we have the ability to let our children dream. And when reality sets as an adulthood, people become skeptics and they start losing that ability to believe in the impossible. You can ask SG or Kendra over on the Sunrise Gecko channel. Not that you guys can actually ask, but you get where I'm going with this. I am a very literal person. Don't come off this way on YouTube, but I am pretty intelligent. I know a lot about a lot of stuff. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to start this channel, was to kind of range out from one place where I'm lacking, which is video games, and into other things that I have interest in that Kendra Station just can't go to. And I'm also a writer. I do a lot of writing. I do a ton of writing. I write all the time. I have thousands of files on my computer and my laptop that are the writings that I've done, original, fan fiction, twisted fairy tales, things like that. But the one thing that I've never lost in my life is the ability to believe in the impossible. And that's one thing that I've always held on to. So even though I'm really literal, and even though I'm really clinical about some things, and even though I have all this knowledge about how the way the world works and how things are supposed to be and how things go, I also still have that belief in things. And that's why I still make fairy houses as an adult. That's why I still like to get children believing, like to get children hardcore thinking about things like that. Because once you start losing the imaginary, and once you start believing that everything is impossible. You start narrowing down what you're limiting yourself. You're making limitations to what you can do as an adult, to what you can do with your future. And I love to encourage imagination, and I love to encourage thought and original thinking and thinking outside the box, and I love to encourage embracing the whimsical side. I have whimsy. It's weird whimsy, but I have whimsy. But a lot of people lose that, and they just get so wrapped up in how shitty the world is today that they forget that they used to believe in fairies and goblins, and they forget that they used to have imaginary friends, and that they used to play outside without worrying that somebody was going to kidnap them. And that's one of the reasons why I encourage fairy houses, and why I encourage another project I'm going to work on in the future, which we'll probably do with this channel too, is I'm going to work on a borrower's house. For those of you who don't know, borrowers are basically wingless fairies. They're like brownies, if you're thinking the mystical realm, who live in your home and borrow things from your, like they'll have a sword that is a needle. And there's a book and a couple of movies out about it. But that's why I still believe in this stuff, and I still like to play with it. Like I legitimately love to make fairy houses for myself. I got started with fairy houses by my great aunt. Aunt Jan showed me how to make a fairy house out of nothing. Just a whole bunch of stuff from outside, put it together. If it gets destroyed in a rainstorm, it gets destroyed in a rainstorm. You can always make a new one. And I've gone up from there. Like, I've made inside fairy houses and outside fairy houses. And I've done a whole bunch of different things. And most of the fairy houses that I've made, I've given away. I actually don't have any I've made. I had a couple that I held on to for a few years, but I wound up giving those away as I got older. But I always fall back on it. Whenever I'm going through a really rough patch, or whenever society starts getting me down, I'll break out a fairy house, man. I will. I'll start working on one, building one, and by the time I get it done, I've met a child who needs it more than I do. And I feel better about myself after I've done it. I've reconnected to that whimsical side of me, and I really love working on them. And we'll get more into the details of fairy houses here in this next one. So I'm going to go ahead and sign off now, and then we're going to start working on the next video here in just a little bit. So everybody have a great day, and remember, keep the whimsy. And once again, this is Eli. He's the Chihuahua. So, bye!